Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Latinx Education Summit. We are so honored to have you joining us. I hope you all are feeling the vibes. I hope you are hype and excited to be here. For just a quick housekeeping, if you'd like to listen to this panel in Spanish, definitely go ahead and visit that link you see on the screen. And we're going to try to also keep our pace relatively slow, just so our interpreters can also keep up with everything that's being said. But we're so excited to welcome you back. Just such great energy from yesterday. And so we're so excited to continue the conversations, continue the real talk, and just honored to have you here. So just to get us started, we'd love to know who's in the room already. We see people dropping hellos. So definitely go ahead and let us know who's in the room. We want to know, let's start with your name. We see your name, so maybe your role and your roots. So maybe in North Carolina or any countries of origin. Ricky, I think this is like a moment to like let out all of the flag emojis, like let them where are you representing? Very excited to be representing Peru today and also Waxhaw, North Carolina. So and now based in Durham too, so multiple hats. But very excited to be celebrating 3 years of Latinx Ed and to be welcoming you all to this space. So we are so excited. Ricky, welcome to you. I'm going to throw it over to you in just a second. I just wanted to name, if this is your first time using Hopin, welcome to the club. We are also testing out this platform. I know there's been a few technical difficulties, so thank you for bearing with us as we kind of work out some of these kinks, but very excited to just have a platform where we can come together and be together, right? So just wanted to shout out a few features while you are listening to the stage. The stage is where all of our main panels will be happening. So you'll see all of our guests here. We have a panel in English happening in just a few minutes, and then we'll have one from our caregivers that will be in Spanish. So there's going to be, we're just remixing and also just creating space for multiple languages here. So excited for that. You'll see a chat feature, you'll see a poll feature, you see Q&A, you see Twitter, you see also a survey to get involved. So just a few things that you're welcome to use during our session. So I'll turn it over to you, Ricky.
Great. Thank you so much, Elaine, for kicking us off. Loving the energy in the comments. The one thing I don't like about Hopin, Elaine, is that the cue between the music and us going live on stage is too quick, and you almost caught me dancing to your jam. So,
it's happening.
But very excited to be kicking off day 2. We have an incredible program for you today, hearing from students and parents, as Elaine mentioned. And wanted to remind folks that an important part of this summit over the last 2 days has been about connecting and building community. And so this is only the beginning of a conversation. We want to make sure y'all are leading the way across North Carolina as we think about how we advance Latino student success and reimagine what it means for our schools to succeed in our public schools across the state. And so in that spirit, want to make sure you're participating in this conversation. The comments are already popping. That is great. There are also other ways to stay connected to Latinx Ed and to each other. We had some pretty fruitful conversations happening on Twitter yesterday as well. So certainly if you're commenting in the chat or on Twitter, certainly use the hashtag Latinx Ed Summit, which you see at times in the corner of our screen here. It helps us to sort of make sure we're giving you a shout out and lifting up your brilliance as well, because you all also had a lot of really great things to share as we're having this incredible conversation yesterday with educators and with Dr. Tippett around the present and future of Latinx education in North Carolina. The other way to stay connected, of course, is by being a part of our Somos NC listening tour, which we will be providing more details about at the end in our closing remarks. But want to remind folks that there's a lot of features at play here in the Pop-In platform. And so if you take a look in the main room, before you jump on stage, I think our screens look a little different. But to the far right, you can see a type form which will allow you to submit your name and your contact information for you to take part in future conversations around Latinx education and advancing Latino student success in North Carolina. So we want to stay connected. This is not the last time we'll be having this conversation. We're taking this conversation on the road for the next 12 months, and we want to be sure that you're a part of it. So sign up on Typeform, join us on Twitter, and get ready for day 2 of the summit. And so in that spirit, want to go ahead and introduce our next panel. So excited to be able to kick off day 2 with centering the voices of those that we are talking about every day in these conversations, and that's our students. And so want to welcome to the stage Melanie Godina Cedillo, who is an incredible inspiration to me. I remember the first time I met her over 4 years ago. It feels like just yesterday, Melanie. It was just the beginning of her career at Carolina, meeting at a Starbucks, asking me sort of, what should I expect from UNC? She had just gotten the Morehead Cain Scholarship, was so thrilled for her. And now look at you now. You're leading the way. We're taking your cues. She's also a Hunt Impact Fellow and spent a lot of her time with the Hunt Institute. And so I'm sure she'll be sharing some of her policy brilliance on that front as well. And so, Melanie, so great to finally see you here on stage. And I'm going to kick it over to you to get this conversation started.
Thank you so much, Ricky and Elaine. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. As Ricky mentioned, my name is Melanie Golina Cedillo. I'm originally from the small town of Weaverville, North Carolina, in the western part of the state. And I see in the chat someone's repping the western part, so go Western North Carolina. But I'm the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants with roots from El Distrito Federal in Toluca. And currently, I'm a senior Morehead Cain Scholar at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where I'm studying public policy and political science with a minor in entrepreneurship. I'm also one of the co-presidentas of Mi Pueblo, which is the largest Latinx organization here on campus. And I'm a representative on the Latinx Leadership Alliance and also on the UNC Campus President's Council. As a first-generation college student, I am really grateful to have had the opportunity and experiences to take part in various opportunities throughout my undergraduate journey. I've had the immense privilege to work with Lead for America, Immigrant Justice Corps, the Association of Latino Professionals for America, and the Hunt Institute as an inaugural John M. Belk Impact Fellow, which has been really pivotal to me in my career and aspirations. And throughout all of these experiences, the importance of knowledge sharing and equitable education access has been a continual theme that stood out to me. So I'm really passionate about understanding how to leverage the resources and knowledge to advocate for equitable and high quality education for all students. I remember being a stressed out high school student, intimidated by the college application process, scared of the FAFSA, and I remember the constant feeling of confusion. And I still understand the imposter syndrome that appears every now and then. But as a college senior, I'm so inspired by the Latinx talent that I see each and every day throughout the state, throughout our communities, and collectively, I know that we can all work to drive change in our respective communities, our state, and throughout the nation. Therefore, I'm so excited to have the opportunity to lead us in this timely discussion today as we talk about reimagining college access and success for Latinx students. As the global pandemic continues to impact us, we want to make sure to have space to have a conversation on how the pandemic is impacting all of us, first-generation college students from immigrant families, as we try to navigate school, life, and our futures. So today we're going to have an honest conversation with one another about how we're coping with the prolonged pandemic, how we're coping with the challenges facing present and future first-generation college students in this moment, and what is keeping us all moving forward. So for this conversation, I'm joined by two great student leaders that I would love to introduce. So first, I'd love to introduce Hector Hernandez Arroyo. Hector is a senior at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, majoring in business administration. He's also a first-generation college student who's the son of immigrants with roots from Hidalgo, Mexico. He has had the opportunity to establish Alpha at UNCG, which aims to facilitate the transition of Latinx students to the workforce through internships, networking, and scholarship opportunities. Next, I'd love to welcome Estrella Rocha de la Cruz. Estrella's family is from Tamaulipas, Mexico, and she's currently a senior at Orange High School and plans to attend a four-year university next year. Her dream is to attend PA school and possibly, and I believe so, obtain a PhD. As we dive into this conversation, I'd love for the audience to join us. So if you have any questions for the panelists, for me, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'd be happy to address them throughout the conversation. So enough from me. I'd love to switch the conversation to our other panelists. So Estrella, Hector, welcome to the panel. I'm super excited to have you all here with us today. I'd love to start off with just maybe some introductions from you guys. So Hector, can you tell us a little bit about your story, your family's journey, and what has led you to become a student leader in North Carolina today?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Melanie. First of all, I just want to thank everyone who has had the opportunity to join the call. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Elaine, for this opportunity to join the panel. My name is Hector Herlandez Arroyo. I am a senior major in business administration with a concentration in management here at UNCG. Like Melanie, I actually grew up in Weaverville, North Carolina as well. So we were both from the mountains, graduated from the same high school. As far as my family's roots, both my mom and dad are from Hidalgo, Mexico. They immigrated here to the United States about 30 years ago and settled in Western North Carolina for the past 20 years. Opposed to many of the students' stories as far as going to college, I didn't want to go to college. I was just all about entering the workforce. I was just like, you know what, I'm going to make some money. Don't see as higher education as an option. But just kind of realizing where I'm from, who my family is, and my roots allowed me to feel inspired, allowed me to just want to go to college. I guess one of his experiences that kind of led me to pursue higher education was my grandpa passed away the summer before I came, the summer of the spring semester of senior year. And that kind of just allowed me to reflect and say, you know, I'm not here just because I'm here. I'm here because I'm here to break generational barriers, build generational wealth. And that's just kind of what got me up and running to apply to a 4-year institution. And sure enough, I found myself here at UNCG. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Estrella, I would love to hear your introduction as well, your story, and what has inspired you to become a student leader in North Carolina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Estrella Rocha de la Cruz, and like Melanie said, I am currently a senior at Orange High School and currently applying to colleges. Well, my parents are from Tamaulipas, Mexico, and that's one of the reasons why I've been so invested in talking about equity and issues like this one that we're talking about today, from firsthand experiences in my schools and seeing other Latinx students struggle through this college application process. I've learned to speak up more about it and advocate for ourselves. And I'm currently, like I said, a senior. So I'm also taking dual enrolled classes. So I'm taking a couple classes at Durham Tech Community College here in Durham, and to become a CNA actually. So pretty soon, yeah. And one of the other reasons why I'm so involved in this is because I have an older sister. Her name is Lucero Rocha, and she's currently a junior at UNC studying nursing. And she really helped me get out of my comfort zone and really made me realize that I can be a leader and I could speak out about all these issues that I before she told me that she gave me the confidence to do what I'm doing now. So this is where I am.
That's amazing. I actually do know your sister, and she's a great person. So shout out if she's watching this as well. And it's great to know that you have that support system in place. And Hector, I'm so glad to hear that you wanted to pursue this 4-year education. Estrella, I think, as you mentioned, you're currently a senior navigating these dual enrollment. I would love to, think about, as you apply to college, how that is being impacted by you navigating like a year and a half of your high school experience online. How has this impacted how you think about your future, and what challenges do you think there are for you currently in high school when you think about your future and how the pandemic has impacted you as well?
Well, overall, the pandemic has really made me realize that there's some things that I don't have control of. I'm a person that likes to stay organized, and I like to be able to control, have a timeline, due dates and stuff like that. But with the pandemic, I learned that there's some things that you just can't control. So we had my junior year last year, I was fully online, which was really difficult because you know how they say junior year is your hardest year because it's the one that colleges look at. So I really struggled with my mental health last year. And there was some days, since we were fully on Zoom, there were some days where I lost all my motivation to attend classes. And I just wasn't feeling as motivated as I usually am. And so I realized that I needed help. And just personally for me, asking for help is really difficult. And I knew that if I didn't ask for help, I wasn't gonna accomplish what I wanted to do. I wasn't gonna get my good GPA. It was all gonna go downhill from just because of the pandemic. So I started talking with my counselor, and she started getting me back on track to where I was before the pandemic hit. But I definitely think that if I wouldn't have had those resources like my counselor, that close connection, I don't know where I would be right now. I definitely wouldn't be doing everything that I'm doing right now and having the GPA and all these opportunities that I'm taking right now.
No, definitely. Thank you for being honest and transparent. I think that's something that is really important to talk about during, the pandemic. During my time as a Belk Impact Fellow when I worked with the Hunt Institute, we did a lot of research on mental health. And, there is a mental health crisis currently impacting all levels of students in education. And I think it's really important to make sure that we have the resources and are equipped to navigate that as well. And I think, as you mentioned, you had that support system of counselors and educators who were willing to help you. And I'm really glad that you did as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure you're doing amazing, or you obviously are. So I'm super glad to be chatting with you today. Hector, I have a similar question for you. How you are thinking about your future currently after college, now that you're a senior, navigating so much of your college time remotely. So we spent a year and a half of our college experience remotely. So what have been some challenges for you as you navigate being a college student during the pandemic?
Yeah, so I definitely didn't think that, I would be sitting here saying I'm going to graduate next semester. It's a big milestone. I know for everyone else that, is in the panel is about to graduate. Congratulations for making it this far. My first 2 years were very, I guess it wasn't the best. It was quite difficult, just kind of transition into a new environment. Obviously, I grew up in the mountains. Transition from the mountains to the city was very difficult. And I was one of two who came to UNCG from my high school. So my whole network had to be built from scratch. It was very hard, networking, kind of getting out of my comfort zone. And I was just like, how am I going to do this? And then COVID hit, kind of like what Estrella said, so there's some things that you can't control. There's some, we got sent home, and I was just like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? But for some, yes, you get hit with the hardships from COVID. But I think COVID allowed me to find who I am, who I really am, and what I want to do. So during this period of isolation where I was just at home doing my virtual classes, it was super hard because I was hopping on Zoom, and then you have my mom knock on the door, like, hey, Hector, ¿me puedes ir a la Walmart? ¿Puedes ir a agarrar esto? Oh, Hector, ¿me puedes ordenar unas pizzas? And I'm like, Mom, like, I'm in the middle of class. I have an 11-year-old sister and I have a 2-year-old sister, but while my sister was doing class, you had my 2-year-old sister just running around like, Hector, like just trying to join the call. But it's just allowed me to be grateful for where I'm at today, as far as pursuing a higher education. And, being home during this period of, doing everything virtually really allowed me to, take initiative and to lead. So one of the things that I actually did was I was looking for ways to get involved here at UNCG. I kind of did like a self-reflection where I was like, okay, so do I just want to be a statistic as, the graduating class of 2022? Do I want to be one out of 4,000 students that graduate? Or do I want to be a notable alumni who has impacted UNCG in some way, shape, or form? And so that's kind of where I kind of took the quote where it's, you got to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. And so I was just looking through LinkedIn, and, I took advantage of, using my computer more than ever. And so I hopped on LinkedIn. I looked up organizations that I could establish here, at UNCG. And one of the organizations that I came across was the Association of Latino Professionals for America. It's a national organization where they have over 120 student chapters, of which, some at UNC, one at Clemson, Wingate, UNC Charlotte, NC State, Wake Forest, just to name some here in the Carolinas. And I was like, you know what, this is something that I want to start here, because it wasn't up until my junior year when we got sent home due to COVID that I really realized that it's not just about getting your degree and you get a job. You got to network. As a business major, you have to constantly be networking, preparing for interviews, doing research. And so I was like, there's no way that I just have to find out 3 years down the road a year before I have to graduate, what an internship is, what it's like to succeed and, get a full-time job. And so that's kind of when I took initiative and I started Alpha. And sure enough, it was hard dealing with it during the pandemic. We had about 83 members, I think, but it was just hard to get everyone engaged because I feel like everyone was already like, I want to go back in person. And sure enough, transition, back in person has been very great. The organization actually doubled. We're at 186 members. So I will say that the COVID did affect me negatively and positively because it allowed me to establish something that I can leave here for years to come and just create a more unified community here at UNCG, where we're highlighting student success, giving opportunities, volunteering, scholarships, and just, come together as a community and to say we can all do it. It's not just cada uno está diciendo, si se puede, lo vamos a hacer juntos. So I think that COVID did impact me both negatively and I would say positively too. So.
Awesome. That's super great to hear. And as we can see from the comments, I'm sure there's lots of impact at UNCG. So thank you so much for doing that. I think, as a fellow senior, I've definitely thought about my future, and navigating that throughout the pandemic has been a little difficult. I think another challenge I would add is having those authentic relationships is really difficult to build through an online platform. I was a part of the executive team for Me Pueblo last year, and I absolutely loved that experience, but it was a little bit hard to navigate virtually, of course. So I can, be another testimony to the fact that students definitely want to be in person as safely as possible to build that authentic relationship and network. I also love to connect with my professors. I think some of the most amazing experiences have come from connecting with my professors, them connecting me to somebody else who knows something about, being passionate about my education policy. That's actually how I ended up at the Hunt Institute. One of my professors recommended me to apply, and here we are. I spent the good time of the pandemic last year really understanding, researching the pandemic, how it impacted different student groups. And so I'm really grateful for the experience. I'm glad to be back in person, but I do think that I agree that the pandemic has had some up and downs. So I would love to shoot it back to Estrella. I would love to know your perspective as a high school senior, what you wish your teachers knew about the challenges that you might face being a first-generation college student right now, anything pressing, pandemic, non-pandemic related.
One thing as a senior that I would have liked my teachers to know in general is that we don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're doing in this college application process. We just see all these questions, all these due dates, all these lists of things that we have to fill out. And who do we ask for help? Our parents have, most of them, we're first generation, so they don't know what they're doing either. They don't know how to help us. So one thing I would have liked my teachers to know was that we really need that extra help. We need more resources, and we need workshops. We need we need them to help us each question, because each question is different. And as Latinx families, we also each have different experiences. So all of our families are so different that there's no one set way to answer all these questions. And I realized when you go into my high school specifically, there's a big amount of students that are a part of the Latinx population. And if you ask them, are you going to college? Most of them will say no because they don't know what they're doing. And the ones who do say yes, they still don't know what they're doing. And you can just see by their faces, the shock and how they're feeling, and they're not feeling very well about it. But luckily, I have my sister that I already mentioned, and she's really, I don't know what I would do without her. She's really been there to guide me through every form. She's been pushing on me hey, your application is due next week. You need to start, you should have your essays finished by this time, and stuff like that. Just the extra person, giving you the extra support and pushing you the extra mile is something that I think a lot of us students need. Like, yes, we really want to go into college, so we're going to try our best to do everything, but we just need like that one extra person or that group of teachers or that one group of staff to like really be honest, like, hey, you need to do this, because there's sometimes where I just feel like, is it really worth it? Like, and what am I doing? Like, sometimes I just feel like stopping, but then I remember like, no, like I have to do it. Like, like I really want this, and I can't stop doing it just because I don't know how to fill it out. So then I'm just really grateful that I've had those resources that I know a lot of other Latinx students don't have.
No, thank you for sharing. And, I'm really glad that you have your older sisters, holding down the fort. I'm biased because I'm also an older sister. But yeah, I think, I'm really glad that you have that support system. And I think it's important to bring up the fact that, we need continual support, and Latinx students are not a monolith. We each have different needs, different experiences that shape who we are and what we are passionate about, what our experiences are, and how we navigate, the college access pipeline. So I think understanding that as well is super important to educators. And so I think throwing the question to Hector now, from the college perspective, what is something that you wish your professors knew about the challenges you may face as a first generation college student right now?
I think it's just, being culturally aware, and it's hard to say because, as a student, just expressing ourselves of what we go through, as we can say it, and it's so hard for them to kind of place themselves in our shoes, and it's never going to work out, right? But it's just being culturally aware of just what's going on. Like, for example, despite me being here, I, doing my classes, doing my internship, just trying to do everything. I still have to serve as a resource back at home. I still have to respond to my parents. My parents are constantly like texting me throughout the day, calling me. They're like, "Hey Hector, like, can you pay this bill? Hey Hector, can you order me this? Hey Hector, my Evelyn got her report card, or they sent her a letter. Like, what is this?" There's so many things that are just going on outside, and obviously, kind of with Estrella, like, there's times where you just want to give up. There's times where you're just saying like, I can't do this anymore. But it's just, you ask yourself, if not now, when? If not who? If not me, then who? Who's going to do it? So it's just, kind of just saying, like, giving us a little bit more of leniency and just saying, like, okay, like, we're going to be a little bit easier on them and just kind of give us the support that we need, and actually being there, not just saying, if you need anything, please reach out. And oftentimes we find ourselves in a position where we don't like to seek help, just because that's just how we grew up. We feel like if we ask for help, we're seeing less of a person. But it's just kind of like saying, like, don't reach out, but actually reach out to know that we're being supported. But that's just from my perspective.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to the fact that, while we're also college students and like high school students, we are that additional support system to our families back home. And Hector, I don't know if you agree with this as well, but I feel like I'm a support system for a lot of my peers and mentees. I really, now as a college senior with all my knowledge, I feel like I want to give back to my community, and that just puts an additional, responsibility on my plate that I'm happy to take on. But I would love to see university and faculty step up to try and, make that transition a bit easier for students and make sure that we're providing adequate resources for all of our students. So thank you so much for both of you for sharing on that. I would love to know, Hector, if any professors or school or staff did anything that made this, really difficult period of COVID easier for you. I know things were tough, but was there anything that stood out to you that made your transition a bit easier?
Yeah, and I guess based off the comments that I've seen, I see Marisa. Marisa. Marisa's part involved with Latinx Ed. Marisa, Yubi Sandoval, and I also want to shout out Margarita Cercado. These three individuals have kind of allowed me to make this whole process much more easier. But kind of just going back to everything when I wanted to take initiative, when I wanted to lead here on campus, it was just really hard to do, like to say, well, has there been any other people that have done that before? Any other Latinx students that have taken the initiative to start an organization, to put so much on their plate? And kind of like bouncing off of you, like, I want to help everybody. And, that's something that I love to do, that I have a passion for. It's just helping people find their potential, empower them. But the first thing that I had to do was empower myself and find people that could help me out. And Yubi, Marissa, and Margarita have allowed me to just kind of feel more confident. They've been my moms here at UNCG. They've made it feel like home. And so I know that because they're doing things based off their experiences, maybe from their undergrad or what they're doing, post-grad as far as their full-time jobs, they've just allowed me to kind of just tell me like, hey, Hector, like you're going to go through struggles. There's going to be the successes. The road to success is not going to be easy. And just, they've been there, they're a phone call away, a text away. But these three individuals have really allowed me to kind of just feel more empowered to say I can do it because they did it. And it's just allowed me to kind of get through college up until now.
That's awesome and great to hear. I, really appreciate strong networks. So I'm glad that you have that support system in place. Estrella, I would also love to know, if any of your educators and high school teachers or school staff did anything that stood out to you to make this difficult period any easier for you.
Yes, I had at my high school I had this one assistant principal. His name was Mr. Oken. Sadly, he's not at our school anymore. But he really helped me throughout the whole process. Now he's not at our school anymore, but we still constantly text and constantly have phone calls about different applications. And every time he would see a scholarship or like something that he thought was perfect for me, he would just forward it over to me and be like, hey, you need to apply for this. Like, this is good. And I also had my counselor. Her name is Miss Schaefer or Dr. Schaefer. She's the best. I sometimes I'm there all afternoon. She doesn't care what time I walk in. I just sit there. I ask her all the questions, even if they might seem a little dumb. But definitely she's helped me a lot throughout this process and is always sending me emails to stay on top of my deadlines.
That's amazing. I definitely, have the biggest heart, and shout out to all the educators out there. I think they definitely make such a massive impact in each of our lives. I know personally, there's been so many educators at every step of my college experience, K through 12 experience, that has shaped who I am. And so I think I'm so glad to hear that, you have that person you can rely on as an educator as well. I think now here at UNC, I have built so many great relationships with my professors that being able to have those honest conversations with them is part of the reason that made this transition a bit easier. I could hop on a Zoom call when they were states away and still say, hi, this is what's going on at home. This is what I'm struggling with. But I'm so excited about your class. Thank you so much for teaching. And I think educators being invested in students is one of the most magical gifts they can give us. So thank you to all the educators out there. So shifting to a little bit to what Latinx Ed is all about, we're about incorporating our cultural identity into education. And so do you think this is an important part of you being successful in high school, Estrella, and college for Hector? And where have you found your cultural homes in each of your respective institutions? Estrella, if you want to kick it off.
I definitely think cultural identity is really important. And I feel like if you can't find a group of people that you identify with in your school or colleges and stuff like that, then you're just going to be lost and everything else isn't going to matter. And I think that's really crucial. For me personally, I found my people, my place with Somos Carolina, a Latinx program at our school. That program has really allowed me to find that we're like a whole family. It has allowed me to find other students like me, and we just talk about our issues, about college. We talk about anything, about how our parents are screaming in the background of our Zoom. It's just such a nice place to get rid of all this stress while at the same time talking about anything in a small family group. And I think that's really important. I mentioned already, if you can't find your place or where you belong, then everything else is just kind of not going to fall into place. And yeah.
Thank you so much. And Hector, where would you say, how important is culture to your educational journey, and where have you found your cultural home at UNCG?
Yeah, so I guess just tracing back to high school, I guess you could also agree as well, since we went to the same high school. It's a predominantly white high school, so it's just really hard to find our group of people there. There was only just a small group of people, and even within that small group, there'd be days where we'd go to the lunch table and we'd bring, I don't know, tinga, tamales, and they would just walk around and look at us and be like, what is that? Or they'd be like, is that spicy? Like just giving us looks. So obviously for me, it felt uncomfortable at times, or most of the time it just made me uncomfortable. And I guess, like you said, Estrella, if you can't find that group of people that you can relate with, you're just going to feel lost. So I guess I fell into a dark hole where that I was like, when am I going to see light? But transition now to college here at UNCG, it's so much better. We have 12.5, I think the Latinx population here at UNCG is 12.5%, which is about 2,300 students. It is wonderful. I love it. I have found my group of people just in general through Alpha. It's just amazing. It just makes me feel at home. It makes me feel like I can relate to everyone. I can talk about my issues and feel okay and not get looks at, or not just be like, what is up with him? Or like, is he okay? I'm able to express myself in the way I am. I'm able to have those authentic relationships with not only the Alpha members, the students, faculty, and staff that, we have come together to build this family here at UNCG. And a lot of it just started with Chance. Not sure how many that are here know about Chance, but Chance is a college immersion program for Latinx high school students. So they kind of get exposed to what it's like to come here to college. And I think that that's where it all started. So we're able to kind of just share experiences with the high school students. We're able to kind of just share about, come, maybe be a little bit biased and say, come to UNCG, but in general, come pursue a higher education. And I felt like that was where I found my family. I was able to find, connect with these, students who served as mentors on a deeper level. And kind of that's where it all started. And then once we transitioned here to the in-person setting for the fall semester, that's kind of where we all just came together. Like there's times where, when Mexico plays, we watch it on the big screen. We've had a couple potluck dinners. We have a Alpha intramural soccer team. We go to the library. We go to the cafeteria. We just go around looking for all the free shirts that are being given out on campus, homecoming, the soccer games. I could go on about everything that has happened here at UNCG. And honestly, I don't want to leave. It upsets me that I found all of this, a semester before I have to graduate. But I'm grateful for, what UNCG has done to ensure that the Latinx community is welcomed and that you can find your family here at UNCG. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Estrella, did you have anything else to add?
Yes, I forgot to mention one thing. Now at our high school, I'm part of the equity team, which is like a club where we basically, what the name says, we fight for equity. And we were able to make our school board offer a Latin American studies class and an African American studies class, because we really thought that it would be beneficial and just overall important for minority students, specifically Black and Hispanic students, to learn about their background. And because all we learn about is white history, colonizers, colonizing, all of that stuff. And we thought it would be really beneficial to just learn more about where we are from, and who we actually are in order to continue with our trajectory.
That is super cool to hear, and something I think I would have loved at my high school. So that's amazing. I think to add to the conversation, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't shout out, where I found my cultural home here at UNC. The first 2 years, honestly, were very difficult for me in finding out who I was. I transitioned from a predominantly white high school to a predominantly white institution, except UNC is 20 times as large as, my high school. So it was very difficult to, I think, find my people. As I said, I joined Mi Pueblo through the executive team my junior year of high school last year virtually. Those people are amazing. I call them my family here on campus. Like Hector, we do a lot of things together. We go to the soccer games. We have potlucks. We do it all. And honestly, I'm so, so grateful for them. I also would be doing a disservice if I didn't shout out the Carolina Latinx Center. That place has become, a second home to me on campus. You can catch me studying there. When I'm running in between classes and I need a granola bar, that's the first place I go. So I just want to shout out all the amazing work that is being done here at the university, within the student organizations as well. There's so many Latinx organizations, as I serve on the Latinx Leadership Alliance as well. So many amazing Latinx talented leaders. Not only here at UNC, obviously here on this panel, you can see all the amazing talent throughout the state. I'm just super, super grateful. I wanted to give that shout out. I want to make sure that other universities and other, my university as well continues to serve students properly and ensure that we're giving Latinx students the adequate resources to succeed wherever we may be. So I think this is a really interesting question, Estrella, and I'd love to pass it off to you first. If you had a magic wand, what would you say is the biggest change you would make in your high school to better support Latinx students? No boundaries, anything could be changed.
If I had a magic wand, I would definitely do something where students would be able to ask for help no matter what, like teachers and like mentorship more specifically. Specifically at my school, there's a big population of Latinx students who are failing and like aren't doing very good in their classes because they're not receiving that extra support that they need. And I just think that I would love for some teachers that don't care, I would love them to put more effort into helping these students out because, like I've previously said, their parents, like many of our parents don't know like the math equations that we're learning. They didn't obtain that higher education. So just getting that extra help from the teachers to help them graduate high school and allow them to dream and attend like a university is something that I would really like to see change.
Thank you, Estrella. Hector, I guess same question for you. You have a magic wand. What is the biggest change you would make in your college to better support Latinx students?
Yeah, I definitely would say, sorry about that. I was just trying to work my mute button. I would definitely say just, create some sort of funding where we can just let these students go out to their respective high schools, go out with, undergraduate admissions. And that's something that we're actually doing. We're having undergraduate admissions come to my high school where I graduated from to speak about the resources that are available. It's just, and bouncing off what Estrella was saying, just to let them know that there are resources there, not only here on a college level, but in a high school level as well. Not only for students, but for families as well. Have these honest conversations where, we're able to communicate with them effectively and tell them like, there is help. You don't have to be the wealthiest family to send your son or daughter to school. Like the resources are there. There are scholarships, but oftentimes we're also trying to fight to pay the bills, to pay this or that. So we get distracted and we feel like there's no way out. But if we're able to send, group of people across the state, across the country to ensure that, these students are graduating high school or attending a four-year institution, are knowing that there are resources there, I think that's definitely what I would do. If I could get paid to go out to any high school just to promote, pursue a higher education, share my story, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. I feel like those are very inspirational and admirable, things we'd love to change. I guess my final question before we turn it over to Q&A is, what resources do you need in your high school or college to make sure that Latinx students are successful in graduating and transitioning to the next stage of life? Hector, if you want to start.
Yeah. So here at UNCG, there's definitely a lot of things that are being done, such as Chance, where we're doing outreach to high school students. And, here at UNCG, we have a lot of Latinx clubs and organizations that allow us to kind of get involved, find our families, build these relationships with one another. And, you get posed with the question, if you had $1 million, what would you do? Well, what I would do with that is I would give that money to UNCG to start a Latinx center. And I know Carolina has a Latinx center that's super wonderful, but that's one of the things that I would love to see here at UNCG. I think it's very much needed. The Latinx population here at UNCG is only going to grow more. Sooner or later, we're going to become a HSI, which is a Hispanic Serving Institution, where we're going to receive more resources. Everything is there, but I definitely think that a Latinx center is, something that is needed here, just for all of us to kind of come together, like maybe we find our family in different settings across the university, but there was just a building or a room that was just dedicated for all of us to kind of come together, I think that would be very helpful.
Definitely. Now we'll be advocating for that as well. Estrella?
One thing that I think my high school needs, and I think many high schools in general, we need more teachers who are Latinx, and we also need more staff who's bilingual, who can translate, more translators. I know we have a big population of Spanish-speaking students at our high school, but we don't have staff to help those family members navigate their students through the college application process. And that language barrier is just, it can be broken down so easily with the help of one person, a couple people. But if we don't have those extra staff members, and the language barrier is just going to stay there. And I really think that would be something important. I know my high school is trying, is what they say, they're adding extra staff members, but the change is very slow and I don't see it happening. So I think that's something that should change.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for answering all my questions. I would love to turn it over to the chat. If you guys want to drop any questions, please feel free to do so. I would love to, moderate those. Please don't be shy. We will answer any and all questions. Awesome. So I see one question says, algunos de nuestros jóvenes que quieren ir a la universidad, pero son indocumentados, no tienen los recursos financieros para la matrícula en universidades privadas, algunas sugerencias sobre cómo ayudarlos. So yes, I'm aware of the policies in place that, disproportionately impact undocumented students. Therefore, they, I believe, have to pay out-of-state tuition here in North Carolina to attend any of our universities and a lot of other states as well. I think there are various resources in place. Latinx Ed would be a wonderful place to look into. I'm sure the staff has a large list of resources to be used. Scholarships I know are out there predominantly seeking to recruit undocumented immigrants and support those students going into higher education. So I personally think that reaching out to Latinx Ed would be a great first step to do that. Another question we have is by Juan Castro. He says, I'm in the process of applying to PhD and master's programs. I get flashbacks from my undergraduate application process. How do you feel like your voice and your stories are maximized during your application? And how do you cope with the inevitable imposter syndrome you feel when you're working on those applications? Estrella, this must be close, hit close home to you as a senior working on your college apps. Would you love to take a shot at that?
Yes, well, I know obviously sharing our voices and our experiences through an application, a couple questions and essays is really difficult because it's hard to show who you really are to the people reading the applications. But for me personally, I think my essays were the big factor that I talked about my struggles, and I talked about my voice and my story. But I think it's just mainly my essay, but I know it has been very hard for me to actually try to show them who I really am through a piece of paper and a couple words. And with the imposter syndrome, I think throughout high school, the imposter syndrome kicks in on a daily basis in my advanced classes. So I've kind of learned to cope with it by just remembering that I'm in that class for a reason. I'm applying for that college for a reason. Y si no me quieren, then it's their loss, not mine. So that's just what I try to tell myself. But it definitely kicks in hard.
Yeah, it can be definitely difficult. I remember being a high school senior, very stressed out, very, overwhelmed with all of my application processes. Hector, I don't know if you want to reflect on your high school senior application process how you felt your voice and story was maximized during your application process, and how you cope with maybe the inevitable imposter syndrome that comes with those applications.
No, yeah, definitely. So it was definitely difficult at first. Obviously, earlier today or earlier in the call, I mentioned not wanting to go to college. So at that point, I was already lost. I was just like, is it even worth it? I'm like, my mentality in the moment was like, I shouldn't go to college. I shouldn't go to college. But then I remember, there's a reason why we're given these opportunities. There's a reason why our families immigrate to this country to, give us a better life. And that's the better life. And I didn't put into the perspective of, should I work or should I go to school, or should I be stressed out physically or should I be stressed out mentally? And so I was just like, you know what, mentally is much better. I kind of went through those experiences of, working in the field, doing construction. I was like, this is not what I want. And so I said, I am here for a reason. I am here, to pursue a higher education, and I'm going to do it regardless of what happens, whatever process it takes to get there. And kind of like what Estrella was saying, it's just sharing your story. Like, so oftentimes, just take the time to reflect of, where you grew up, what high school you went to, the people that you've met, and obviously your family. Get to know your family, get to know, their experiences, and then just use that as empowerment, and to, add on to your story as to, why you're in high school, why you want to pursue a higher education. And, just let everything flow. Just be the most authentic version of yourself, and everything will fall into place. And kind of like Estrella said, if they don't want me, that's their loss. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing. I definitely, I keep saying as a college senior, just because the time flew by so fast that I still vividly remember writing my Common App application and just feeling overwhelmed about the idea and the question of who I am. My family was incredibly pivotal to my educational experiences, and they were the main reason I wanted to seek out, higher education. And I think that is a relevant theme throughout many Latinx families. So I just really want to encourage all Latinx students to really lean on what you are passionate about, what inspires you, and continue to, as Hector said, use your most authentic voice and continue to advocate for yourself, because you are applying to these institutions for a reason. Like Estrella, I am super, super excited for you. I think you're going to have an amazing journey. My college experience has had so many ups and downs, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I'm just really grateful to have had people there to support me as well. So I think coping with the imposter syndrome, something that I really reflect on is, reflecting on the small, I guess, wins throughout college, just making it through the first semester of freshman year, just making all those small victories big victories, because we are trailblazing as first generation college students. Everything we do, is the first. And I'm genuinely inspired by everything that this population does. And I'm super grateful to have gotten the opportunity to come chat with you all. So now I would like to thank you both formally for coming to chat with me as we're coming up on time. Some closing reflections. Truly, I am going to leave this panel inspired, knowing that, Hector, you've made a lot of impact at UNCG throughout your 4 years there. And Estrella, I'm super, again, excited to see where the world takes you. I know you're going to be an inspirational leader wherever you are. And for those of us for everyone who's watching, I definitely want to thank everyone for coming to hear our voices and understanding, our needs, and providing the platform for us to speak on our experiences as first generation college Latinx students here in North Carolina. Si se puede, pa'lante. And I'm really, really grateful to have had this opportunity. So thank you all so much for attending this really critical conversation this afternoon. It was super important, and we hope to continue doing this work to center those directly impacted by the policy decisions our state leaders make every day. So I want to encourage everyone to follow Latinx Ed to learn how you can support their work and Latinx students across North Carolina. Now I'm going to toss it back to Ricky and Elaine as we wrap up the first panel of the day. So thank you all so much.
Ooh, oh my God. Melanie, Hector, Estrella, thank you all so much. That was incredible. You never know what sort of conversation folks will have when they're on a panel together, but y'all were so inspiring and gives me hope for the future, as you are not just our future leaders, but present leaders as well. So really excited to continue following each of your journeys, and know that Latinx Ed is always here to support y'all every step of the way. And so really excited to continue this conversation. In just a few moments, we're going to transition from having a conversation with students to having a conversation with parents or caregivers. And this conversation, I want to give folks a heads up, will be in Spanish. And so you see the ticker at the bottom of the screen. This conversation will be in Spanish. I know we got a lot of bilingual folks in the room, so that shouldn't be a challenge for you. But we're reversing the roles here. So if you need interpretation and want to follow along with the conversation, you're going to have to use the Zoom link that you see here at the bottom of the ticker. So if you use that Zoom link, the link is also in the reception area. If you want to click on it there, you'll be able to hear the conversation in English. And so we will transition now from panel to panel, and we'll be getting started here in a few moments. But thank you all again for sticking it out with us, and excited to see everyone in a few minutes.